The cold wind howled through the cracked window, carrying with it the scent of snow and something darker. It was the night before Christmas, but the air outside was too still, too quiet, like the calm before a storm. The house, nestled in the middle of nowhere, was too old for comfort, its walls creaking and groaning under the weight of years. A small fire flickered weakly in the hearth, casting long, dancing shadows across the worn furniture. I sat there, frozen in place, the silence around me growing unbearable. My breath fogged up the glass as I peered out into the blackness, hoping to see something, anything move. But there was nothing, just the quiet. I had been traveling alone for hours, and the remote cabin was the only shelter I could find for the night. I wasn't used to being alone in such a desolate place, especially not during the holidays. But something had drawn me here. An old family story, a strange message I received that morning, something I couldn't explain. My fingers ran over the edges of the letter again, feeling the jagged tear where it had been opened. The words were simple, but they gnawed at the back of my mind like a persistent itch I couldn't scratch. You are not alone tonight. The letter had been delivered to my door early that morning. No return address, no signature, just those chilling words. I hadn't thought much of it at first, but now, sitting in this old, creaky house with the fire slowly dying, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching me. The hairs on the back of my neck stood up, prickling with unease. My eyes darted to the shadows, half expecting something, someone, to emerge from them. And then I heard it. A soft, unmistakable sound, the faintest of footsteps, barely audible over the crackling of the fire. I tried to convince myself it was just the wind, the house settling. But deep down, I knew it wasn't. I wasn't alone in this house. I slowly stood up, my legs stiff with fear, and walked toward the staircase that led to the second floor. The floorboards creaked under my weight, the sound too loud, too sharp in the silence. Each step felt like a betrayal, as if the house was holding its breath, waiting for something. I paused at the bottom of the stairs, listening. The house was quiet again, too quiet. It felt like something was holding its own breath, waiting for me to make the next move. The fire flickered once more, casting a long shadow across the room. My heart raced. I didn't want to go upstairs, but I couldn't just stand there either. So I took a deep breath and began to climb the stairs. The further up I went, the colder it became. The temperature seemed to drop with every step, as if the air itself was being sucked out of the room. By the time I reached the top, I was shivering, the hairs on my arms standing on end. There was no light upstairs, just the moonlight filtering through the dirty windows, casting pale, ghostly shapes along the hallway. The door to the first room was ajar, a sliver of darkness beyond it. The door to the second room was completely closed. I moved toward the first room, my hand reaching out to push the door open. The instant my fingers touched the handle, I heard it, soft, almost imperceptible, like a whisper, a voice on the edge of hearing. But no one was there. The hairs on my neck stood on end as the voice grew louder, closer. Go back. It wasn't my own voice. It wasn't anyone I knew. It came from somewhere deep within the walls, a voice that seemed to come from the house itself. I froze, my fingers still on the doorknob. The voice echoed again, clearer now. Go back. Don't open the door. But I couldn't turn away now. I had to know what was behind that door. Slowly, cautiously, I pushed it open. The room inside was empty. Just an old wooden bed, covered in dust, a single rocking chair in the corner, swaying slightly as if someone had just been sitting in it. The air in the room was thick with something oppressive, heavy. I stepped inside, my feet sinking into the thick carpet of dust that covered the floor. The silence was suffocating, and yet it felt like something was watching me. I turned to leave, but that's when I saw it. A figure standing in the far corner of the room, half hidden in shadow. My heart skipped a beat. The figure was tall, almost unnaturally so, its limbs long and thin, too long for a human. Its face was obscured by darkness, but I could feel its eyes on me, staring through me into the deepest part of my soul. I wanted to scream, to run, but I couldn't move. My body was frozen in place, my breath shallow and quick. I opened my mouth, but no sound came out. The figure slowly lifted its hand, pointing toward the door, its fingers impossibly long and bony, its skin a sickly shade of gray. I followed its gaze, and for the first time, I noticed the faint outline of a door at the far end of the room. It hadn't been there before. I knew it hadn't. I took a tentative step,